I'd gotten off work late, and I needed dog food and a few groceries. My local Walmart isn't a 24-hour one. It closes at 11 p.m. I knew that, but I figured I had time since it was only 10:20 when I pulled into the lot. The parking lot was emptier than usual. A few scattered cars, a couple parked way out like employees. I remember glancing at the dark stretch of asphalt and thinking how huge and lifeless it felt. Inside, the blast of fluorescent lighting hit me like always. Everything was washed in that sickly white glow. The greeter wasn't there, just an abandoned podium with sanitizing wipes. It felt strange, but I brushed it off and headed inside. At first, it was normal. A mom with 2 kids in the cereal aisle, a guy pushing a cart full of sodas, an older woman squinting at a shelf of canned soup. It looked like maybe 20 shoppers total. But then I noticed something. Nobody was talking. No chatter, no excuse me, no small talk. Even the kids were silent, just trailing behind their mom like shadows. Their little shoes made soft squeaks on the tile, and that was it. I pushed my cart through frozen foods, feeling more unsettled with every squeak of the wheels. I grabbed a bag of chicken nuggets for quick meals and tossed them in. The thunk echoed way too loud. That's when I realized people were staring at me. Not casual glances, but full-on, unblinking stares. The mom and her kids stopped in the middle of the aisle and just looked at me. The man with the sodas stood still, hands on his cart, head turned. The older woman with the soup lowered the can slowly and fixed her eyes on me. I froze. My mouth went dry. Hi? I said, my voice sounding thin, nervous. None of them answered. For maybe 10 seconds, we just stood there. Me gripping the cart handle, them watching me like animals frozen in headlights. Then, all at once, they scattered. Every single person turned and bolted in different directions. Carts screeched, items clattered, footsteps pounded. The kids sprinted ahead of their mother, who ran after them. The man with the sodas abandoned his cart completely, cans tumbling and rolling across the floor as he vanished around a corner. Within seconds, the aisle was empty. I was left standing there, heart racing, my ears filled with the echo of retreating footsteps. What the fuck? I whispered to myself. I should have left right then. I know that, but I didn't. I pushed forward, nerves screaming, telling myself maybe I walked into some weird prank, or maybe an announcement went off that I somehow didn't hear. But every aisle I passed was empty. And then I saw him. One man, at the far end of the frozen section, standing perfectly still, facing me. He wasn't like the others. He didn't stare blankly. His expression twisted the longer I looked at him. His lips peeled back into a snarl, his eyes wide, bloodshot. His whole body shook like he was vibrating with rage. And then he ran. He sprinted full force down the aisle, straight at me, screaming at the top of his lungs. Not words, just raw, throat-shredding screams. I dropped the nuggets and ran, my shoes skidding on the slick floor. The scream chased me, bouncing off the tile, louder and louder. I cut into the next aisle and shoved my cart behind me, letting it crash into a display. Something slammed against it almost instantly, his body colliding with the cart. The metal rattled and tipped. His scream didn't stop. I bolted the other way, weaving through housewares, heart hammering so hard I could barely see. I ducked behind a shelf of blankets, crouching low, gasping for air. His scream cut off. The silence was worse. I clapped a hand over my mouth, trying to muffle my breathing. Every second stretched forever. I listened, straining for footsteps, movement, anything. And then I heard it. Not him. Them. Dozens of footsteps. Soft, shuffling, surrounding me. I peeked through the blanket shelf and nearly vomited. They were all back, every shopper, lining the aisles, standing shoulder to shoulder, facing me. Not speaking, not moving, just watching. I stood up, shaking, clutching the shelf for balance. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice cracking. Nothing. I took a step back and their heads all turned in unison, following me. I bolted. I didn't care anymore about being quiet. My only thought was the exit, the automatic doors, safety. I tore past displays, past self-checkout, my legs pumping. I could see the glowing exit sign, the promise of cold night air. I ran full speed into the glass. It didn't open. The doors were locked. I slammed against them again and again, panic boiling over. My fists pounded the glass, but it didn't budge. The clock on the wall behind me read 11:07. The store had closed. I turned, chest heaving, tears blurring my vision. They were there. Every shopper, silent, still, blocking every path, except one, the screaming man. He stood front and center, closer than the rest, eyes locked on mine. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then he smiled. It wasn't a grin. It wasn't joy. It was wide, wrong, stretched too far, teeth bared like an animal. And then he charged again. I screamed back this time, pure terror ripping out of me as I shoved past racks of clothes, knocking them down, sprinting blindly. I don't remember how long I ran, how many aisles I tore through, but eventually, somehow I made it to the fire exit by the garden center. The alarm shrieked when I shoved it open, stabbing my ears. But I didn't care. Cold night air hit my face. I stumbled out into the dark, half falling onto the asphalt. The lot was empty, completely empty. No cars, not even mine. I didn't stop running. I tore across the parking lot, across the grass, down the road. My phone was still in my pocket. I fumbled it out and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The cops found me 2 miles from the store, sobbing on the side of the highway. They searched Walmart. They said it was empty, locked up tight. No shoppers, no employees, nothing. But I know what I saw. And every night since then, I've woken up to that sound, that scream. It was 10:57 when I pulled into the Walmart parking lot. I know the exact time because I looked at the clock on my dash and groaned, wondering if I was wasting my time. Walmart closes at 11 p.m. sharp. No more 24-hour convenience, not around here. But the building was still lit up, the giant glowing Walmart sign casting a bluish glow against the dark sky, the fluorescent lights inside spilling out through the glass doors. I figured maybe I could chance it. All I needed was milk and paper towels. If the doors were locked, fine, I'd leave. But if they weren't, it would save me the hassle in the morning. The parking lot was almost empty. A few scattered cars sat near the side entrance where employees usually parked. The rest of the lot stretched wide and deserted, lit by buzzing street lamps that threw down pale yellow cones of light onto blacktop still slick from a recent rain. My shoes squeaked as I crossed the asphalt, the sound uncomfortably loud in the empty air. When I reached the doors, they slid open without hesitation. That stopped me. Usually by this time, the doors would be locked. But they opened for me like it was just another shopping trip. Inside, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Normally there's faint pop music overhead, the beep of registers, the chatter of families, or the squeal of carts. Tonight there was nothing. Just the buzz of fluorescent lights and the echo of my footsteps. And then he appeared. A man came out from behind the customer service desk, moving quickly, like he'd been waiting for me. He was tall and wiry, his gray hair combed flat across his head in a way that made his scalp look too pale. His face was lined, but his smile was broad, unnaturally broad. He wore the standard Walmart vest, but it was filthy. Streaked and spattered with dark red stains that covered the front of his vest, his shirt beneath it, even down the legs of his pants. "Evenin'," he said warmly, like we were old friends. "You're late to the party, aren't ya?" I froze a few feet from the door. "Sorry, I thought you guys closed at 11. "We do," he said, chuckling, his voice oddly cheery. His teeth were very white, perfectly straight. "But lucky for you, I'm the manager. I can bend the rules a little. Go on in, shop away." "Are you sure?" I asked cautiously. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble." "Nonsense," he said with a flick of his hand. "Special treatment tonight, just for you." He caught me looking at the stains across his vest. He patted one casually, still smiling. "Ketchup," he said with a laugh. "Bottle burst in the back. You wouldn't believe the mess." I forced a chuckle back. "Ah, got it. Ketchup." But it didn't look like ketchup. It was too dark, too thick. The way it streaked looked like something smeared by fingers or dragged across fabric. I told myself to shut up, grab what I needed, and get out. I pushed a cart into the grocery section. The wheels squeaked horribly, echoing through the store like a warning bell. The shelves were neat and full, but I didn't see a single customer. No cashiers at the registers either, just me and him. Every time I looked behind me, the manager was still there. Not close, but never gone. He lingered at the end of an aisle, hands clasped behind his back, pretending to inspect a shelf or straighten a display. Always smiling, always watching. I grabbed a carton of milk quickly and headed toward paper goods. That's when the intercom crackled overhead. "Michael?" the manager's voice said, smooth and friendly. Come to the office, please. The speakers popped off. A few seconds later, footsteps echoed faintly. A young guy in a blue vest walked past the end of my aisle, head down, moving fast toward the back of the store. He didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me at all, just hurried on. Then it came, faint, muffled, but unmistakable. Screaming, choked, panicked, then cut short. My whole body went cold. I gripped the cart handle so tight my hands hurt. I told myself I'd imagined it. Empty buildings make weird sounds. But I couldn't convince myself. That was a human voice. The intercom crackled again. Jennifer, to the office, please. Jennifer. My stomach twisted. Another employee walked by minutes later, a woman this time, moving stiffly toward the back. She didn't glance at me either. The scream that followed was shorter, sharper. I shoved the cart aside, my chest tight. I was done. Paper towels could wait. I turned toward the front of the store. But he was there. The manager stepped out from an aisle ahead of me, smiling wide. All set? He asked lightly. Yeah, I said, forcing my voice steady. I held up the milk. Just this. I'll pay and get out of your way. Perfect, he said. Self-checkout's open. I'll be right here to help. He followed me to the registers. My hands shook as I scanned the milk. The beep echoed, too loud in the silence. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him adjust his vest, still smiling, still watching me. Then, slowly, he turned. Gotta check on something, he said cheerfully, and walked toward the back. His footsteps squeaked until he disappeared through the swinging double doors marked Employees Only. The store felt even emptier without him. The silence pressed down heavier. I swiped my card with sweaty hands, praying the machine didn't glitch, praying nothing forced me to linger. Then the intercom clicked on again, his voice calm and steady, but now echoing slightly, like he was speaking from a handset in his office. Terrell, to the office, please. A pause. Footsteps. A stocky man in a blue vest trudged past the front of the store. His eyes looked red, like he'd been crying. He didn't look my way. He just walked stiffly to the back. A moment later, the muffled sound started. Thuds. A sharp, pained yell. Then silence. The self-checkout beeped, spitting out my receipt, but my hand wouldn't move to grab it. My ears rang with the quiet after those noises. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat sharp and painful. Then he was back. The manager stepped out from the employees-only doors, wiping his hands on his stained vest. His grin was stretched wider than ever, his teeth catching in the harsh fluorescent light. "Wish me a happy retirement," he said softly. I blinked, frozen. "What?" He tilted his head, eyes boring into me. "Go on. Wish me a happy retirement." My throat felt tight, but the words slipped out. Happy retirement. His grin widened, almost splitting his face. "Thank you. That means the world." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the doors. I didn't look back. I rushed across the silent front end, the automatic doors sliding open like salvation. The cold night air hit me, and I nearly collapsed from relief. I threw the milk into my car, started the engine, and tore out of that lot shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. The next morning, my phone buzzed with alerts. "Massacre at local Walmart," the headline read. 11 employees found dead overnight. Authorities described it as a deliberate act of workplace violence. The suspect was still at large. They showed photos of the employees, smiling faces, people I'd walked past, people whose footsteps I'd heard, people whose muffled screams I couldn't erase from my ears. And in the background of one of the group photos, behind all those smiling faces, was the manager. His arm draped casually around them. That same wide, perfect smile. I started working at Walmart during the summer, mostly nights, mostly stocking shelves and cleaning up after the shoppers. It was dull work, but it paid the bills. I'd gotten used to the fluorescent lights, the hum of the freezers and grocery, the occasional strange smell that lingered in the electronics aisle. But one night changed everything. It started when a shipment came in late. Usually, the night crew finishes by 2 a.m., but that night the trucks were delayed. I was in the back unloading boxes, moving pallets with the forklift, when I noticed one of the crates looked wrong. It was unmarked. No stickers, no barcodes, just a plain wooden box, heavy and solid. I asked the night supervisor about it. He shrugged and told me to put it in the back room with the rest of the shipment. Probably a mix-up, he said, but something about the crate felt off, cold, like it didn't belong here. I pushed it into the corner of the stockroom, and that's when I heard it. A faint scratching noise, like nails on wood. I froze. The stockroom was empty except for me. I strained to listen. The sound stopped. I chalked it up to the boxes settling and got back to work. A few hours later, I noticed the store was unusually quiet. The usual hum of the refrigerators and the fluorescent lights was there, but the soft, constant background noise, the murmur of distant shoppers, the rolling of carts, was gone. I was alone. I started my nightly rounds, checking aisles, straightening displays. That's when I saw it. A figure crouched at the end of the toy aisle. I thought it was a customer at first, but when I walked closer, it darted behind the shelves. No one was there. My stomach twisted. I told myself I was imagining things. The night shift could get to you, staring at empty aisles for hours on end. Later, I was in the freezer section, stocking frozen meals, when I heard a loud crash in the grocery aisle. Something heavy had fallen. I ran to check. Boxes of cereal were scattered everywhere, but the shelves were untouched. No one was around. Then I noticed the security cameras. One of the monitors was flickering. When I looked closer, I saw movement. Something, or someone, was walking down the aisles. Slow, deliberate. I squinted. It didn't look human. The arms were too long, the movements jerky, unnatural. I backed away, heart hammering. Maybe it was a maintenance worker. Maybe some guy from another shift came in, but the cameras showed it heading toward the front registers. I ran to the entrance. Doors locked, no one there. Then the intercom crackled. A voice, low and raspy. It wasn't one of the usual employees. "Why are you here so late?" it whispered. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. I dropped the box I was carrying, my hands shaking. I tried calling the night supervisor on the walkie, but there was no response. Not even static, just dead silence. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, slow, soft, but unmistakable. I turned around. Nothing. Just the empty aisles stretching into darkness. I ran to the stockroom, thinking I could hide, thinking someone might find me there. The crate. The unmarked crate. It was in the middle of the floor now. I hadn't moved it. My hands felt clammy as I approached it. The scratching started again, louder this time, more frantic. I wanted to run, but some part of me, curiosity, terror, kept me rooted. I opened the crate. Inside was a person, or at least it looked like one, pale, motionless, bundled up. The eyes were open, blank, empty. And then it twitched. A low, gurgling sound came from the mouth. I screamed and stumbled back. The crate fell over. The figure inside rolled out. It wasn't fully human. The limbs were twisted, wrong angles, and the skin was pale, almost translucent, veined like it was under tension. It groaned and moved toward me. I ran, down the aisles, around displays, knocking over mannequins, everything in my path. The thing followed, silent now, but relentless. I hid in the electronics aisle, crouched behind a row of TVs. I tried to steady my breathing, tried to think. The cameras flickered again, and I saw more of them. More figures coming out from the stockroom, from the freezer section, from behind displays, pale, twisted, silent, watching. The intercom crackled again. "You shouldn't be here," the voice hissed. "None of you should." I realized then the shipment wasn't a mistake. This was a delivery of something unnatural, something alive. And they were all loose in the store. I tried to find the exit. Emergency doors, locked. Doors to the parking lot, locked. It was like the store had become a cage. I ran down the aisles, past frozen food, electronics, toys. Each corner revealed another figure, hunched, waiting. I found a broom closet and slammed the door shut. Tried to barricade it, heart pounding. The scratching started on the other side. Slow, deliberate, like nails on wood. Then a thump, a low, wet thump, and silence. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was meaningless. Every sound, every shadow made me jump. I could hear them moving through the store, hunting, whispering. Finally, I saw it. A faint light coming from the roof doors. Fire exit. I ran. The thing that had followed me from the stockroom lunged. I barely dodged it and slammed the door open. The stairwell led to the roof. Cold night air. Freedom. I climbed down the fire escape and ran through the empty parking lot, never looking back. When I reached the street, there were no cars, no people, nothing, just the faint glow of the Walmart sign. The next morning, police came. They found the store empty. No shipment, no crates, no twisted figures. Employees from the night shift were gone. Security footage corrupted. No explanation. I quit that day. I don't work nights anymore. I don't go near Walmarts at night. But sometimes when I drive past one, I swear I see movement in the aisles. Pale shapes, watching, waiting. And I know, if you're ever alone in a Walmart at night, something might be watching you too.